It is the Friday before Father's Day, and happy Friday to you. Hopefully you're having a great day wherever you are. Welcome to the Cabin Fever Podcast with Brent Bailey. I'm your host, Brent Bailey. It's so good to have you here today. I got a great show planned for you. I have got my dad, JP, is going to be joining us here in a little bit, and his two brothers, Mark and Dwight, and grew up, those guys, were like more like big brothers to me growing up, and we got a lot to talk about today. We're going to talk about dads. We're going to talk about the influence of a godly father in your life, and also honoring your dad today. So you got a good show ahead of you today. I'm joined today by Jody. Jody's directing today, and man, it's a big step for her. Luke was unavailable to join us today. Pull your camera down so I can see you a little bit better, because you look small sitting over there.
Oh, I know. Like these curtains are going to swallow me up.
Yeah, they are. So I know this is a big day for you too. It's Father's Day, and you got your dad, Rich, that I'm sure you would want to send a greeting to. So
yes, happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you, and thank you for being a great dad.
And then, of course, your stepdad, Bob Harrison,
Happy Father's Day, Bob.
is
love you too.
also big influence in your life.
Yes, he is.
And so we're just grateful to have both of you guys in our lives, and thank you so much for everything you poured into my wonderful wife and made her who she is. So happy Father's Day to you guys.
Happy Father's Day to you too, honey.
Oh, well. Yay. Yeah, my boys, I got one boy in there in the other room playing Fortnite, and one in Kentucky with my dad right now. So Preston and Peyton, such wild young men. Listen, we're going to talk just for a second. I just was doing some research for the show today, and came across this article. It was the most unpopular gifts according to a survey of over 1,000 dads. Now, so if you haven't gone out and purchased your dad something for Father's Day yet, unless you're going to be one of those, really cool family gifts of you're giving him a pregnancy positive test to tell him he's going to be a grandfather, which those seem to be pretty popular. We have come up with a list here according to a survey of over 1,000 dads throughout the United States, random places. These are the things that are unpopular for Father's Day, okay? The number one unwanted gift. Any ideas, babe? What do you think it is?
A grill.
A grill. Actually, that would be a pretty awesome gift.
Well,
what?
I said I have a reason behind that one.
Well, what is it?
That means the father has to cook on Father's Day.
Well, that doesn't mean he probably would want to if he got a grill, but
Sure.
Especially if it was one of them really expensive ones. But anyway, the top unwanted gift, according to this survey, 32.6% of the dads surveyed said they did not want clothing. Now I'm that's exactly what I would want. I would want a clothing gift card of some kind to go shopping.
Yes,
The survey found that 46% of people buy clothes as a Father's Day gift. So according to this survey, you want to steer away from that. That's their least favorite gift. Then the second thing, and I'm sorry to say this because this is what a lot of people do, but Hallmark, this is detrimental. Many fathers don't like getting greeting cards, according to the people surveyed. The response found that 30% of fathers do not like receiving a card, even though 59% of people who will go and give a card to their dad for Father's Day. All right. Number 3. Here we go. Moving on. In addition to clothing and greeting cards, many fathers don't like. Any ideas?
I have no idea.
Books and CDs.
Oh, I was going to say a book about how to be a better father.
That's exactly. Ding, 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 ding. They do not like receiving that. Over 30% of the people surveyed said they do not like that, and they just that doesn't care for it. So, and the other one right behind it was personal care items like razors and shaving things and combs and stuff like that. Personal care items, bottles of cologne.
They don't
With
like
all
that?
the kids in the family that said, "Here, love you, Dad. Here's your bottle of Brut by Fabergé." All right. Now, on the bottom of the list, which means this was way down near the bottom, and so this would be the ones where you want to go with tools and appliances and electronics, or some kind of special outing like a concert or a trip or something like that. So those are the things that dads are wanting. So those might be the ones to purchase for you this year. So, babe, I would like a brand new MacBook Pro and a trip to Hawaii.
Okay.
According to that survey.
Well, you may be going to Hawaii in March. So
Usually always am.
That's where we usually go in March. It's a happy Father's Day.
Yeah, thank you. So, all right. So today I got a big show planned for you. I got a great group of guests, and my dad is going to be joining us here in just a minute, but he's also going to be joined by his two brothers. Now, they had a third brother who passed away a number of years ago. He was a great man. Uncle Mike was the oldest of the 5 kids in the family. They had Uncle Mike and Aunt Sheila, and Sheila's still with us. Praise God, she's been fighting off cancer and still kicking. But we lost Uncle Mike a few years ago, and I know that on a day like today, he is remembered, especially his family does watch the show. I've been honored to be asked to be on the board of my cousin Tony, his ministry. That is in jail chaplaincies all across the United States. He's an influencer in that aspect. And then my cousin Michelle, you guys have already met because she was on like our second or third program. She is a minister and a comedian in her own right. And on a day like today, when we have the other 3 that are still here, it's so great to remember Uncle Mike as well. But first of all, I want to introduce my dad. He is was a building contractor almost my entire childhood. I spent many summers on the job getting yelled at because I didn't clean up right or something. I'm sure he's going to have a smart aleck remarks. I have to beat him to the punch today. But we had lots of summers where we'd go to Woolahan's lumber company together, and those were great summers and really taught me a lot about being who I am today. And all that stuff that I hated doing in the summertime, I'm actually putting it to use now. Even though we pastor a church and host a podcast, I've rebuilt and remodeled our sanctuary numerous of times because of his drilling that into me when I was a child. Now, his brother Dwight is an attorney and a pastor of Faith Christian Assembly in Flatwoods, Kentucky. That's the church I grew up in, and he's also a practicing attorney and very successful in his own right. He and his wife Kathy are just great folks to be around. I mean, if you're not around them for 5 minutes and laughing, because the infection of Dwight's joy is awesome, and also has had a real strong influence in my life. And he's the father of 5 kids, and so all of them are doing great and amazing creative things in the business world and in ministry, and so he's done a great job there. And then the youngest brother is Mark, and Mark pastors Connect Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He and his wife Alexis have 3 kids, and now they're all starting to get grandkids now. So I think it's four grandkids for Mark, and I got to do the math here real quick. Let's see, 2, 3 for Dwight, and then 2 for JP. Now, Dad just had me. He just got it right the first time. He didn't have to have 5 kids, or 4 kids, or 3 kids, or he got it right the first time. But anyway, enough talk, enough introduction. Let's get these guys on here. Please welcome to the program JP, Dwight, and Mark Bailey. Hi, guys. It's finally, there they are. Hey.
Good evening.
Hey, guys. So, man, thanks, first of all, for taking the time to be here.
Oh, it's an honor.
Who's going to talk first?
Having fun seeing my brothers.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got. I'm gonna say this first. I'm glad you got the order right. I am still the youngest.
And, yeah, and most people would say the best looking. I'm trying to brag. I don't know.
All right, JP's leaving.
He's leaving.
Jay's gone.
Okay. Well, guys, I mean, seriously, it means a lot that you would that you would come and be with us today. So let me just get it right here. So this is Mark that's on the screen right now, pastor of Connect Church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Now, Dwight, say something so the camera will kick over to you.
Okay, I want to say something profound, I guess. If you don't quit, you'll eventually get there. That's Dad's saying.
So this is Uncle Dwight right here, and then Dad, say something so that the camera will kick over to you because it's voice activated.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. Okay.
Are you making fun of me? Is that what
Oh,
you're
no.
doing? No, never, never. I like your backdrop. It looks familiar, oddly familiar. So,
I'm in Northern Command.
okay. All right. So, guys, seriously, it means a whole lot to me for you guys to take the time out to come on the show today. And I'll just throw it out there first to whoever wants to take it first. Man, Father's Day's coming up. I know that we've been without Papaw for several years, but how big of an influence was your dad in your life?
I'll start.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. He was a great man, and he overcome many obstacles. He didn't have a lot of education, but he had so much talent, and we could just go on and on. You know, I think he went like to the 8th grade, and then he taught himself to read by reading the newspaper at home. And if he had come up on a word, our mother would help pronounce it or spell it or something like that. But he done great things. I mean, in this area, he recruited the first pharmacy, doctor, dentist, laundromat, built many houses. And that's kind of where we get it from, the outreach from our father. And by the way, this is who made me a father, eligible to be fathered.
Oh,
I do.
is that me? Oh, that's so nice.
There you go.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So now let me just say this, because you kind of glazed over that, but this is, to me, it's one of the more impressive stories is how he went and built and recruited businesses into the city there.
He actually called University of Louisville and recruited 2 doctors, Dr. John and Henry Jones, and he built them an office and helped to support, kind of siphon them. And same with the drugstore. He went to a local drugstore pharmacist, and he agreed to open a second store in Flatwoods. Dad provided lease to the government a post office, so we'd have a larger post office because Flatwoods was growing so fast at the time. Actually, then they had more population than they have now. I think now it's like 7,800, 7,600 people. That's 100, not 1,000.
But the fact of the matter is he recognized the need and he went and built buildings almost in faith. I mean, we didn't even know about faith in those days, but almost like in faith that this is something that was needed and this is what, God's going to have to meet that need somehow.
That's correct. And we had a praying mother that helped support that.
Amen.
All right. So what about you guys? Now you guys probably were a little too young to maybe remember those exact moments, but I know he had a tremendous influence on both of you as well.
Yeah, I know. I believe I remember the phone call down there to the university. I may be wrong, but I believe I can recall that. We had a telephone in the hallway and a little kind of a desk, and I can remember it being real exciting. I mean, I was young, but I can remember, Mom and Dad talking about what they were doing, and it was, and that they had got a favorable response, and the doctors were coming, and I remember Dad saying, "Look, I'll build the building, and we'll take care of you to get you up here." So he was a real innovator, and I think JP and I and Mark, when we get together, we just are really amazed when we start thinking about how he could, he did so many multiple things. He was a builder and started out probably moving houses, and then he put all of his land together and all those maps and engineered them, and then he could build almost anything, and then he became an artist as he got older. I mean, it's just amazing how many different things he could do. He's a great dad, great father, great example.
I know that he was, Papa to me, but I mean, he didn't hesitate to talk to me like a son. Mark, I'm sure you have stories too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember those, but I do remember, with my children even, you got to remember the Ferris wheel. Who in the world built the Ferris wheel? our dad built a Ferris wheel, had 4 chairs on it. It's all out of wood, rough cut lumber, and it was working. It was like a 20-foot Ferris wheel. You should have heard my kid.
Yeah, I know that I was a little too big for that. I was too big to fit on it. It was just like a lawnmower motor, I think. I think we've lost Mark's audio, so I don't know what happened there. But did we lose all 3 of them, or all 3 of them? Okay, the other 2 guys are there. So we've lost Mark's audio. I don't know what happened there, but he's telling the truth that he did build a Ferris wheel. And at that stage, I was a little too big to get on it. So it would start to go up, and then the belt would slip, and it would just kind of sit there in this one spot. And I could never get it to go all the way around. But I remember the younger kids getting ready to go all the way around. What a great man that he was. And I know that each one of you left that mark individually left on you. Because it shows in what you guys do now. So if you both or all 3 could talk about maybe what is it that you're doing now that you see yourself being influenced by what your dad did?
Well, if I could, I'll just interrupt and go in. I have the dad carried in his billfold of us 3 brothers. So I'll go ahead and show it now. Is that
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
So that's us growing up. But that saved my life. I have to mention this somewhere here. I was going down for the 3rd time in the murky, dirty, muddy water of Sandy River and East Fork, where they come in. Well, it was just like a big commode that had flushed. But I was swirling down, and I swim back up. I was 10 years. So anyway, I was going down the 3rd time, and I just gulped water, and I just thought that's it. And Dad ran about 100 yards from the top of the hill down, and probably 20 feet dove off of the bank into the river. And right when I was in front of him, and he grabbed me, and I grabbed Dad, I about drowned us both. I grabbed him like a leech or something, and he swam me to shore. My mom was crying and speaking in tongues, and Sheila was screaming, and Mark was laying on the ground. He was just a little baby. There, serving. But, I wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for my dad. And I get all sensitive when I think about and talk about that. But anyways,
talk about his influence in what you're doing now, though.
Yeah, I saw how he did, and I recruited doctors in and started a clinic. Well, before that, I wanted to build all the time. I wanted to go with Dad. I wanted to be like a tick on his side or something. I mean, I was with it. We'd ride around in the old truck. But then as we got older, and I felt like the Lord was directing me to build a clinic. And we had some of the doctors at the hospital bet against me that we would never be in business more than 1 year. Well, 10 years later, I sold out to the hospital. We had, not bragging or anything, bragging on God. It's all him. We had 7 physicians, different specialties. We had 22,000 active patients in a city of 10,000. And, the guys didn't know what to think when we were in business more than 1 year. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's the kind of influence that you grew up looking at, as somebody else that was tenacious like that and would just dare to, go against the grain and say that this is the need, I'm going to fill it.
Yeah, that's right. And then the other need was, and Dwight and Mark and Michael was all involved. We'd sit around and talk, and we'd feed off each other. And, I guess the word, maybe it's not used much anymore, but, and I'd say, well, I think we ought to build a clinic. And they'd say, yeah, let's build a clinic and let's do this. And So Dwight helped me on the legal part. We had about that much of an application to get a primary care clinic approved for the state of Kentucky. And of course, there was bets against that we would never get.
Well,
You was
I know.
So-
I was there. I remember every bit of those conversations. Now, Dwight, what about you? How much? What is it that you're doing now that you can see his influence in your life?
Well, after he died, I found myself thinking about him and so much, and everything I do. I would drive around in my car, when nobody's listening. I'd say, Dad, it's kind of hard to miss you when I think about you constantly.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, and it's funny. Instead of grieving and being so hurt, which you normally would be when you admire somebody so much you lose them, it was just like he's with me all the time. It's so weird. I mean, I know, he's not the Lord, but the Lord has done that. And it's a great thing. I mean, it's like our relationship never stopped.
Yeah.
And I remember the day JP was talking about, I think I was little, I was playing on the sand, on the bank with the trucks or something. And I heard everybody screaming. I didn't know what was going on. And when I looked up, my dad was running. He was working on a building up there. He was building us a little, like a summer camp, a little house to go to by the river. And so he heard JP, it was in the water and Mom squalling. So he took off flying, like JP said. He ran on a very hot day. He was soaking wet with sweat. But what I thought was amazing was, I don't know how he thought of this, but I can remember seeing this. He grabbed his little book that he kept all his information in, and he was running full speed, and he was throwing stuff out while he was running, and he threw it out on the ground, and then he got to about where I was up high on the bank, and he dove into the water like Superman. I mean, I could cry right now thinking about that, because that was my image.
Yeah.
My dad, he was Superman.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I know at his funeral, I picked the Indiana Jones theme song for his video tribute because that's who he reminds me of every time we start telling stories. Mark, what about you?
He walked.
I figured my mic's gone. Is my mic on?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
you're
no,
back.
you're good.
You're back.
Wow.
Look,
What
he's
happened?
back. He's joined us, everybody.
I fixed it.
The dojo is back, so.
All right. I fixed it.
Oh, no.
All right.
Oh, no.
That's great. He looked like Aaron when he did that. Didn't
Yeah,
he?
no,
He looked
right?
just
He
like
did.
Aaron when he did that, yeah.
He did. So the question before us right now is
Yeah.
the things that you're
Okay.
doing now, what kind of influence do you have from your dad?
Well, I mean, I'm a master electrician. I did actually from your dad as well. JP and I wired the house on the hill. My first house I ever worked on.
Really?
I remember driving nails on the subfloor of the house on the hill. I remember my brothers nailing down my shoes to a subfloor to the building, the big building where Luna's Flowers used to be. When I was, we got it, Caleb. They nailed my boots down. I had new boots on, just little. And they nailed my boots down to the subfloor, and I couldn't move. And I remember hollering for Dad. Those types of things. But I remember, what I really remember is one of the first things I remember when I think of Dad. I remember the pancakes. When we would there'd be occasions. Every once in a while, I think it was me and Dwight stayed home on a Sunday night with Dad, and we were watching Wild Kingdom with Marlon Perkins.
Sure. Yes, sir.
And Bonanza.
Yeah, Bonanza, Disney World, or Walt Disney sometimes. What's the guy that used to be with Marlon Perkins? He's got his own show now.
Jim, what was Jim's last name?
I remember we watched him. We sat and laughed, and we were scared to death. But they were wrestling a cobra, and that like he killed that.
Yeah.
They were in about 4 or 5 feet of water. They told Marlon Perkins about drowned. But anyway, Dad went and fixed his pancakes, and Mom would fix pancakes once in a while, but they were the little ones. Dad fixed us pancakes, a whole skillet, covered up the whole plate, and he gave me. I don't even know how old I am, 8 years old maybe, and he gave me 3 of those. Huge. And I probably didn't eat 3-inch square piece, But I remember him cooking those pancakes. For whatever reason, that stood out to me. That he, he didn't do a lot of cooking. Mom always did, but he took us aside. I didn't know he could even cook. He cooked pancakes and stuff. And for me, that's one of the things I carried, because what I would do on Saturday mornings, I'd cook my kids pancakes.
That's awesome.
And and he's been such an influence on me. Dad was an entrepreneurial. I remember I talked to this with Ron, and what all he was doing stuff. One time he asked me about my background stuff, and he said, "Man, that's apostolic," and just the mindset. And so we grew up with that. We grew up with that entrepreneurial, apostolic spirit, mindset, going out and doing things. I remember the garbage can he had in the basement at Napier Street, that he was making a filtration system for the Armico when pollution became a big deal. And Dad went and presented it to the guys in Armico, and the guy walked Dad out and said, "Hi, we absolutely love your ideal, but we just bought one just like that from, I think it was from some Japanese or somebody. Some big company has the same exact concept. We just bought one just like it."
Yeah, for those of you who don't know what Armco was, that became AK Steel, is a large steel factory there in the Ashland, Kentucky area for years, and so.
But he was an engineer. He was that type of guy. Then he's a guy, like you walk around today. I feel so inadequate in myself because people come, "Hey, what kind of tree is that?" Yeah, I don't have no idea. But Dad would go, "That's an oak tree. That's a white oak tree. That's a spruce. That's a maple. Oh, look at the leaf." It just vast knowledge.
Yeah.
I mean, that I just don't have, and I just I don't know where he got it, how he got it, or
with an 8th grade education, and he still had such vast knowledge. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
All the engineer he could have been.
Yeah. Any kind of formal training, he would have probably changed the world. I know that one of the stories I remember, the painting thing, the paintbrush with the rubber tube connected to it that would siphon the paint out, and he would paint with it while he was with the blood pressure cuff pump thing, and he would.
It's like Wagner tire roller.
Yeah, before that ever became a thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The perpetual motion machine.
And the perpetual motion machine downstairs, which the wheels for that are still and now some people are thinking, what are they talking about? He was trying to discover perpetual motion, so he had 2 big wheels, and he was trying to figure out how to get them to continue to. And I think the longest he got it was almost 2 hours.
I don't remember how long it got. But it was a rim from a bicycle and steel balls and some different things.
Magnets and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
He was convinced the magnetic part of the earth had a part to play in it, and that it could happen.
Yeah.
I tried to talk him out of it, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
He's believed it.
Yeah, and he was he was involved in that for it seemed like for the latter part of his life. It would he'd go back and revisit it after a while. He would let it go for a while and then come back and revisit it. So, I mean, we're talking about, this is my Uncle Mark, my Uncle Dwight, and my dad, JP, and they're our guests today. And we're just talking about, because Father's Day is Sunday, and, no matter where you are and what your condition is, if you know your dad, or if your dad's not with us anymore, or maybe, you never grew up with your dad, but you had a man in your life that was a strong influence, this is the week to celebrate him. And so as we turn just from talking about Howard, for you guys, and all 3 of you have been great dads. I know I tell stories about, growing up and mom and dad get nervous because they think I'm making them look bad. Most of my stories are told in comic effect, because I had a great childhood. I make no bones about it. I tell everybody how great my childhood was. But I would say, just as an opinion from all 3 of you, God calls himself our Father. And for some people, that doesn't connect because they didn't have a good relationship with their dad. But you guys have all 3 shown the same kind of love and received that kind of love. And just kind of speak to that. I don't care who goes first. Just speak to the importance of the love that you show and the love that you received, and what kind of influence that has.
You know, Brent, just while you were talking, I wanted to speak to that. I've mentioned it the other day. I think that's just you're celebrating fathers today, and what a great thing to talk about, because I think that is so many of the problems stem from the families being broken, and young men of every race growing up without a good father figure in the home. And if they don't find God, then there's nobody really, unless they find someone else who can step in there. And another great thing is that it doesn't have to be a blood relation to be to have that same father-son relationship. I know Beth and I are close, my stepdaughter, and she's awesome, and I love her just like she was my own, and I think she loves me just like I was her blood father. And I know she has a father, and I don't want to take his place or anything, but we just have a great relationship, and it's wonderful what a father can do and be, and I'm just thankful for all of his great influence.
Yeah, I think it's the most important calling of our lives. I think it is the number one, Jay. It's more important than our preaching. It's more important than our work or anything else. I mean, it's to be a husband and then to be a father. And I really think we got to get that priority right. And because that's the influence that we're going to leave. The influence Dad left was us, and he did a great job. And we have that inherited. I believe it's really the most important. Miles Monroe talks about how important a man is in the family and the structure of the family and all that. So, it's like the wife is the front door, and the husband is the foundation, and the kids are all the decorations and everything that goes on over. Nobody ever comes over to your house to see your foundation.
That's so right.
I mean, it's so true. It's Miles Monroe. But everybody will come see the front door. They'll come and see the decoration. Oh, it's a beautiful. Oh, you got a new front door. It's a beautiful front door. It's great. But the problem is that nobody ever comes and sees the foundation, but they know when you don't have a good one. They see the cracks in the home. They see the cracks in the walls. They see the cracks in the brick. They see things slumping and things out of shape because the man's not there. The father's not there to hold things up and hold things together. Because that's what the stability of a home is built upon a father. We are the foundation of that.
So good.
Now, if I could circle back around, I know Mark's been taking up most of the time, but circle back around. Dad wasn't, and he knew a whole lot about nature and about God had created, but most of the time, he'd say that's an oak tree, that's a maple.
Mark said that.
Then I know, and then he would say, Mark, I told you that's poison ivy. Now stay away from it. So sometimes he would have to.
Never learned it.
Never figured that one out, huh?
But Dad was so interested in showing his kids and his grandkids things. I mean, he butchered a pig. He butchered a calf
that we ate. That wasn't for sport. Let's make sure that that was for food. So.
Yeah,
well, he raised them too. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, how many of we have, all of us have it. How many people have been around just watching? I one Easter morning I went out. Mom sent me to get that. Go get your dad. Dad, you going to church this morning? Nope, she's having problems, and he has his foot on the cow, has his hands around these hooves that are being birthed, and he's pulling on it, pulling it out, and he goes, I can't make it today. I'm trying to help her. So, I mean, there's not a lot of people seen that wasn't on a farm, in the middle of town. So, but that was, we had a sheep at one time. We've had ponies. We had cattle. We had pigs. You guys remember when we got mountain oysters. They were there.
Oh, Lord. Okay, moving on. Dad, what kind of influence does a father supposed to have?
Well, I know you would probably say we just beat our kids and do anything.
That's right. Hit them in the back room. No. Go ahead.
I really was aware and conscious of that from Dad, and they would correct us. You know, Dad, he would, you know, pull out the bell if we smarted off or something. And Mom would say, you know, you can't go to the movies on Saturday night if you can't go to church on Sunday. And that's what we tried to do to raise Brent. I know when Brent was born, Nancy was having a hard time in labor, and I was a young kid. And so I had to just duck out for a little while and go pray. And I'm being serious.
It doesn't sound right, though. I had to go duck out for a while. Go ahead, Joe. Finish your story. It's a good story.
So I went to the park next door to the hospital and prayed. And I said, Lord, if you'll just let that baby come, I'll raise him in church, you know, every time the church is open. And if I'm available, not available, but if I can, I'll get him to church. And I made God the promise of that. That's the way Dad and Mom raised up in church all the time. And so I got my car out of the park and went back to the hospital. As soon as I walked in the door, they said, he's coming. It's all going to be, you know, good. It's all the screaming and hollering's over with. So, well, but so it turned out the results is right there. And so we praise God. I know I've heard Dwight before about his sons. This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased.
Yeah. And I can say, as somebody that's been on the receiving end of you know, from Howard's kids, raising kids, and being, you know, son to you, nephew to the other two, you can see it through all of the kids. I mean, everybody has got their own niche of talent and ability and drive and determination. And, you know, I've been guilty in my life of just taking that for granted because I thought everybody talked like that and everybody thought like that and everybody, you know, and being in ministry for now all these years, it's really something to have realized that not everybody was blessed with that. And that's the thing that I want to give all of you kudos for, because you can see it in your kids. And obviously, they're all doing something to make their mark on the world in a positive way. And that's just, you don't see that as often as we all thought we did, because we were just raised to think that way. And as we go to start to wrap this up, if you could, all three of you take a turn to speak to the fathers now. You know, as on the other side of people that haven't had that, but now as the fathers, what kind of word would you speak to encourage them as their, or even if it's a father figure, to influence their kids in a positive way?
Well, I would say, real quick, just that God will bless you with people who may, you know, to the people out there who may not have a blood father, but God will bring people into your life, and they will be your father. And don't take it for granted, because I believe they can be a gift from God, just like your natural father. And then I think about the children, you know, the great kids I have, Amy, Matt, you know, Jenny, Luke, and Faith, and, you know, Beth and Bill now, and all the way down. They're just such blessings that it's worth it. The thing that I believe, you know, in the New Testament, it talks about God doesn't treat us like orphans, and he disciplines an orphan. I mean, he would discipline his son, it says, Paul said. And so if you're not a son, you know, he may not be able to discipline you, but you should, in other words, I think that applies to your kids. It's worth the time and the effort to put into your kids, you know, that you care enough about them to correct them and to try to help them. And I think we're missing a lot of that today.
Man, that's so good, Dwight. So good.
I'll be quiet for a minute.
No. Go ahead. I was just amening you. I know it kind of fed back funny there. I was just amening. That's good.
Yeah, I can hear the other guys, but that was just real quick what I had on my heart.
I know that, okay, while you're up there, I know that, you know, you had, you know, 5 kids, and then Kathy had 2 kids, and so 7. That's a big That's a
a
big
tribe.
brood there. Yeah, it's a tribe. But I know that you would take your time to discipline your kids. I mean, I know because I was some of them's youth pastors, and I know that there was times of that. A lot of people would tell you, I know the old saying was, it's, this is harder on me than it is on you. But I think that's true now. It does seem uncomfortable to discipline your kids nowadays because there's so much, I need to do this and I got to be this, but it is worth it, isn't it?
It sure is. And when you see how they grow and become talented and successful, you just think, oh, it's just so worth it. And just one other thing I'll throw in there is that if you're a father, you have different kids. I found that, boy, I think every one of them are different. Every one of them have their own way. And, some of the girls, if I just would frown at them, that would discipline them. I mean, that would be enough. And then, some of the others, the guys, you could whip them and it didn't really make any difference. It didn't help, so they're big and stubborn. They don't care, so it's just different things affect different people. And plus they're growing and developing. And if you can let them be who God is wanting them to be, and who they are, don't try to make them you. I think you're so much better off because they're not going to be exactly the same as you are. And no matter how bad you want them to be.
That's good. That's good advice right there. Really good advice. Mark?
Yeah, I think I just like to confirm what everybody's been thinking. Yes, Brent was spoiled the whole time he was crazy. I was there. I saw it. You're welcome, JP. But I really just want to just encourage all the men that are fathers, and especially, I think it's a special calling when those men that step into a situation and men that step up and are stepfathers and those type of things. Don't think that you're not qualified. Don't think you can't do it. Don't be discouraged with it. And they're going to test you worse than but understand and know the natural children test their own natural parents and fathers. They'll, you're not my dad. Well, that's okay. I'm your dad. It's here. That's got to do it. And know that they rebuttal us with the natural on the natural side as well. But God's put you there for a reason.
So good.
I got a word the other day and talking about the stones that was Nehemiah was building the temple. And the Sanballat spirit says that they're burned out. They'll crumble if a fox gets on them and they're going to be no good. The walls will never stand. And then you can go to Peter, and Peter says that we are living stones. And the Lord just showed me that there are living stones that have an umbilical cord connected to them. And every time we get burned, we get refreshed, we get renewed, we get regenerated. We've got power that's surging from the source of life, and that God is supplying that to us. And so whatever problem, situation, difficulties, challenges that you're having as a father, turn to the Heavenly Father. There's a source of life for you. He'll supply the answer. He'll help your situation. He'll minister to you. We're connected to the source of life. And we are those living stones that He's developed. You can be a great father. You are a great father. And God's going to do even more for you if you would just allow Him to do that. So let God use you. Go ahead. You're qualified because He qualifies you. And let Him do it.
Hey, that's a grandbaby right there.
Yeah. Hey, Papa.
Okay, JP. Wrap that up.
No, yeah, we're recording.
I was just thinking that I grew up and my dad was a very strong man, physically and spiritually. But when I grew up, he hugged me a lot. And I know without a doubt that he loved me, but that word was never spoken too much. I love you, Dad. It was just because that's the way it was back in the 50s, maybe. I know some of Nancy's family, I've done that and heard them talking about it. If you're a big, tough man, you don't sit there and say you love somebody or just your wife. Or saying that you, in front of your kids, show your emotions. I'm living with a person now for temporarily, my grandson, that says, I love you, J. Paul, every 15 or 20 minutes. And I think of Dad every time. I think, I love you too, Preston. I'm so glad you're here, and I'm so thanking God for you're here. And he sees us cry and show emotions, or sometimes he might see some anger coming out, but I ask him to forgive me. But anyway, as I'm saying, encouraging other fathers, just don't be afraid to show your emotions, show your love, show your emotions, and physical, hug them, and wrestle with them or whatever. And one more thing, I would like to encourage not only my brothers, but every father out there. And Mark mentioned Miles Monroe, and I'll mention him too. He said that everyone should write a book about their life. And I'm encouraging you on Father's Day to write a book to give to your kids for your legacy. It's just something, how did he say it, Brent? Like the cemetery's full of unwritten books.
Yeah.
And man, that just got on me. So therefore I went ahead and plugged it. But Mark and Dwight, and you've written books.
Yeah.
Show your book, Jay. Show your book.
Okay.
Hey,
Well,
here it comes.
Intangible prosperity.
This is today's for your gift of any donation.
This podcast has been sponsored by Intangible Prosperity.
Come on, bring it up there.
so
Turn
anyway,
it around.
Flip it over. There you go.
on the back.
You
Make
can
sure.
see
That look good.
Okay. I just to get that in. I mean, I'm telling you, fathers, you can do that. If you look up average in the dictionary, it'd have a picture of JP, the most average person around, but God has blessed me.
Amen.
That's the big.
Amen.
Okay.
Our guest today has been Dwight, Mark, and J.P. Bailey, my dad and his two brothers, and I'm so grateful. I know I said it at Grandma's funeral. I wanted my kids to be around Dwight and Mark the way I was when I was growing up. I remember coming over when they still lived at home, and I would come over and those guys would greet me at the door with a body slam or a body check, and we'd kind of wrestle around. And that helped shape who I was. I grew up playing basketball Sundays afterwards with Dwight every Sunday. Those are the kind of things I remember that influenced me, and I know that it helped build drive and determination and toughness to face a lot of things, in ministry and in the world. And I know I was talking to Dwight's oldest daughter, Amy, her husband, Jay, the other day, and we were talking about something, and I was trying to encourage Amy about something on her TV ministry. And those of you who've watched the program know Amy's been on the show here. And Jay said these words, and it made me laugh because I had to ask him, did he think that about everybody? But he said, she's Bailey, Brent. She'll figure that out on her own. And it made me laugh because it's like, well, yeah, I guess we did. We were raised by good people that really spoke a lot of drive, determination. You can do this into our lives. And I want to say, first of all, I am who I am and done what I've done from the influence of all three of you. Dad first, obviously I lived in your house. But Dwight and Mark, you guys don't even know the influence that you've had on my life over these years because you were good uncles that were there, and just like I say all the time, your kids are like my brothers and sisters. I was the only child growing up, but I'm thankful and grateful to have you guys in my life and to have spoken in my life. And as we go to wrap this up, I'll say this to those that are watching: if you have kids, take the time to invest into them, because what you are investing into them is going to pay off in great measure. Beyond your wildest dreams. To go back and I see what my cousins are all doing now, all the way from Mike's kids all the way down to Mark's kids, from the oldest Tony all the way to the youngest in faith. It's an investment from good parents and good dads. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're a dad today, invest in your children. If you're a kid, man, honor your dad today, this weekend. Honor him in some way, shape, or form. When we had Daryl Strawberry on a few weeks ago, Daryl said that he didn't know his dad. but the coaches that he had in his life are who made him who he was. So whoever you are, wherever your situation is, honor your father this weekend. And if you're a dad, invest in your kids this weekend. This is the time how we can heal our land and make this nation what it's supposed to be with the influence of those guys and you men that are out there. So I want to say thanks to you guys for coming and being on the program with me today. It really meant a whole lot to do this. I was trying to think from the very beginning of the show, 2 or 3 shows in, how I can get everybody on. And I just felt it in my heart then. I said, just wait for Father's Day. It'll be the perfect time. So I want to just say how much I love all 3 of you, just tremendously. Grateful to have you guys in my life, and thank you for all the investment that you made in me.
Thanks, Brent. We're so proud of you too. We just want to say for everybody, we're so proud of your ministry and all the things you're doing, you and Jody and your family, and all the grandkids, all Dad's grandkids. They're all doing great stuff.
All right. Love you, Brent. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That's Dwight, Mark, and JP, and my dad, JP, and I'm so grateful to have had him here on the program today. As we wrap up the show today, I want to just encourage you, take the time this weekend to go out and spend some time with your dad or with your kids or with the male role model in your life. You're sowing seeds for excellence in the future. All right? Coming up next week, I got another line of great shows for you. I've got the worship pastor at Rainbow Bible Church, Dan Taylor, is going to be with me next week. I've also got Crystal Zellner. She used to be Crystal Clemmer, and she's going to be with us talking about some things in our lives as we rebuild after COVID and are healing through these racial unrest. As we begin to heal the land, there's some things that I think if everybody would start to understand and know, that we're going to just continue to grow and be better. I'm not sure. We've got a third guest. I'm not sure who it is off the top of my head here, but we'll make sure that we get that information out to you. We're so grateful that you were able to join us today. Why don't you click the share button on the program and share this podcast with as many people as you possibly can. Tell somebody about the Cabin Fever podcast, because we sure love doing it and we sure love bringing it to you. Until Monday at 2:30, get outside and break the cabin fever. Happy Father's Day, everybody.